Welcome to The Unsidelined Life, the podcast that challenges and encourages women to stop denying themselves a full life and to step boldly into the opportunities God is preparing for you. Join me for raw insights and engaging conversations to guide your journey of self-discovery and pursue the life that God created for you. Welcome to The Unsidelined Life. This is Eileen Noyes, your host. The things that happened prior to coming on here. A couple things. Going from stay-home mom to all of a sudden all this entrepreneurship stuff and all these things. I suck at the tech part. So we're probably working for a good 15, 20 minutes on mic stuff. So now that that's done, and there's also okay, my guest is someone that we played together, and I haven't talked to her since. So these are always fun for me. I love doing this because this is kind of reunion time for us. And it's coming from a whole different space of lives have changed, all these things, and not knowing each other's world, and then just coming on screen and then talking. So we were doing it before I recorded. I'm like, okay, we got to stop and let's just get everybody in the seat, up to speed, all those good things. So my guest is Jeannie Pederson. A beautiful woman. I love her. I've always loved. There's just this spunk about her, and just the things that I've known of her. It's like she could get frazzled, but she's funny, and that's how I remember her. Her husband is Doug, who used to be a quarterback for the Packers, and so we're gonna get into all that stuff. But I think, you emailed me. I don't know, maybe a couple months ago, and you had heard through another friend. Yeah, you heard that I wrote a book or something like that, and you emailed me. You emailed my business, email. So to hear from you was just so amazing. So I'm going to give you the floor just to introduce yourself, what your connection is to sports, all those things, and then we'll go from there. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Absolutely. I'm excited too. And to revisit what you said, another connection with Green Bay, it was Shelley Schrader. She had a conference in Orlando, and she took the train to Jacksonville to visit me, and we hadn't seen each other in several years. And she was the one that told me that you had written a book. And of course I ordered it. It got there. I read it. I couldn't put it down, read it from cover to cover, and didn't know any of your story, that you were remarried, didn't know any of it. And I was like, I have to reach out to her. And I did send you that email on your business account because I didn't know how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, it was such, I was like, oh my gosh, it just made my day, honestly. So.
But thank you for having me. Thank you.
Okay. So Jeannie, tell me about, you and your family, Doug, connection obviously with Packers, how many years, things like that.
Okay, well, I had to ask Doug because it's been a while since we were with the Packers. Doug played for 12 seasons with the Packers. Actually, his NFL career was for 12 seasons, but his years with the Packers were 1995 to 1998, and then 2001 to 2004. And I think that's when you were there, the 2001 through 2004. So we were actually in Green Bay for two different times. And and he retired a Green Bay Packer. So our last season, and I don't know how that lines up with yours, but he had an injury that put him on injury reserve, and then that's when he made the decision to retire after that 2004 season.
Okay. So that was, and then somewhere in the mix, weren't you guys on the Eagles? Is that what it was?
Yes. So he was a free agent. He started his career in Miami, and then from Miami, he was in and out of their training camp every summer, which is very familiar for a lot of players that are trying to get in the NFL. And he got his break with the Packers, and we were back up to Brett Favre in Green Bay. And then Andy Reid got his first head coaching job in the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay. We followed Andy to the Philadelphia Eagles, and then Doug became his quarterback in Philadelphia. From Philadelphia, we went to Cleveland. And then from Cleveland, we went back to Green Bay. And that's when he retired.
Okay. Yeah. So I was wondering, you're saying, I had a feeling it was like a little bit of moving around here and there.
Oh, yeah. It was a lot of moving. And because Doug was not drafted, he went the free agent route, which he always had to go to camp. He had to compete. He usually would be the one released, and then he would come home. I was working. I'm an RN. And so while he was trying to make the team, I was working. I had the job. I had the insurance. And then when he got the call for Green Bay, and I remember it like it was yesterday, he said, this is going to work out, for me to move there. And it just kind of freaked me out because I said, you want me to move from the only thing I've known? And I think I read about that in your book, how scary that was, and moving such a small place, but it ended up working out, and that's how he got his break in the NFL. And he was able to get he played 12 seasons.
Wow. That's amazing. So let's go back to how we knew each other, how we met, just to give perspective. So, this is like two opposite sides of the ball, offense and defense. I always think they don't really know each other that well, but we met through the couple study.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if you remember that, but I think that Kabir was going to a couple study. I don't know if they had more than one study, but I just remember thinking, okay, there's these couples that are going to meet me, and I'm shy. And so I'm like, this is so awkward for me to just jump in to just this whole new life, whole new environment as like the new woman, the new wife. And so I just remember it was actually at Shelly's house. That's where we had Bible study. Wait, I'm sorry. I'm laughing right now because I just remember there was a time, if you remember this, Bill Schrader, he was on the couch. It was on a recliner. The whole chair fell back. Were you there?
Wait, was that his own house that it fell back? No. Those are the little memories I have. But what was it like for you? Like when you just because my ex, he's super outspoken, stuff like that. You said you had no idea what happened. And I rarely ask this question to my guests, but I'm curious just because, you knew me, you barely knew me. And then you just see me coming in and it's like, oh, this is a new wife. They just recently got married. And you knew my husband or my ex-husband as he was very outspoken. He was a very outspoken Christian. So what was it like for you knowing what you know? And then, you were talking, you just found out that all hell broke loose in my marriage. What ran through your mind? I'm just curious. Well, I have to go back to how we met, and our connection was through couples Bible study while we lived in Green Bay, and we were all in our 20s. I was young. I was a young mom. I had 2 kids, and Doug was just getting into the league, and I was trying to figure it out, and we hadn't been married that long. And so you're going to Bible study, and you're with all these other couples, and you're all talking about Jesus, and you're not talking about hard things in your life. And if you have hard things, you're not talking about it. And I have learned through my years, I'm 55 years old now, that, the Christian walk is not about acting like you have it all together. It's about being real and being honest. And we were probably all going through the same things in that room. The fear, like you said, you were new, you were young, you were shy. I was from a small town. I was young. I was very shy. I had 2 kids, and I was living away from the only family that I've ever known. And then my friends and my family, because that's who you celebrate holidays, were practically in that room. And wow. The bonds that we made in the few short years that we were there, they meant something. And when you have that foundation with Christ, it means something. And so you ask me how I felt when I heard, that you and Kabir were divorced. I was shocked. It'd be the same if you heard that Doug and I were shocked. Shelley and her husband got divorced, and they were also in our Bible study.
I did not know that.
Yes. So again, you know, these are all couples that we're all in the same room and we're trying to learn the word, and, you know, our leaders, and we're trying to do all the things possible, you know, that God tells us to do. And it just shows you, you know, that, I mean, some things do not work out no matter how hard you try. So again, for me to hear that, it was painful for me to hear, because, you know, you don't like to hear news or stories like that. But at the same time, you completely understand, you know.
Wow. Well, okay, see, that's what happens. Like, life goes on for different people. And yeah, to hear that, even just hearing what you just said about our friend, like, oh, that breaks my heart too, you know. But we never, it's crazy. You just said, like you said, we talk about Jesus, which we did, but there's also that place where it's like we don't get real with each other. And I don't know why that isn't. And that's such, my heart is to go, man, like, you know what, there's Christians on the teams that even there, it's like we still put on this face. And it's not intentional. I don't think we mean to be fake, but it's just a place of, am I safe? And I think there's also the dynamics of, you know, your couples, you don't want to put your stuff out. I felt like we put our stuff out a lot. And I don't know, I just felt like this. And I talked to one of the younger players. She's younger than me, Emily Nelson. I would say, you know what, like, maybe it's because of where I'm from, culture. Like, I'm transparent. I still my guts. And I felt that there was like people that just, not that they didn't, I don't know. I just felt like I'm feeling stupid right now to share all these things that I'm going through, and not feeling like, you know, like it was reciprocated, and it to no one's fault, you know? So I don't know. And maybe also the fact that the women and the men were there, I think it totally changes the dynamics.
It did. And I think we were at a different season in our life. And I will go back to being young, you know, being young and experienced. I grew up in the church my entire life, but I credit my testimony of really knowing who God was from being in Green Bay through a women's Bible study in Green Bay, and hearing 3 women talk about having quiet time with God and spending time with Him, and how they felt so guilty because they were in a hurry that morning and they got up and they didn't spend their quiet time. And in my mind, I'm like, what are they talking about? You know, but they went into that Bible study about quiet time and spending 15 minutes a day, you know, 5 minutes of just praying, 5 minutes reading the word, 5 minutes of prayer, and then 5 minutes of you just being still. And I can remember going home that day feeling so guilty, thinking, okay, I've grown up in church. I go to church. I have my Bible. I take it to, you know, all the check marks, but yet missing the mark when it came to what those ladies talked about in their Bible study. And that day I came home and just really had, you know, my own time in the living room in Green Bay with God, and had to apologize for missing it. And I felt like I was missing it. And so Green Bay has so many more memories to me, and they come from women's Bible study and couples Bible study from Green Bay. And all of those people that were in our couples Bible study, I still have some form of communication with them.
Okay. And because our time frames were different, because like, yeah, who were the leaders during your time? And then there's obvious like mutual connections. And then there's spaces where you're not there. And then I'm, you know, with the younger ones. Like, who were those women? I don't remember.
So of course I'm drawing a blank on who the leaders were, but they were the same leaders that were at Green Bay Community Church.
Okay.
And that's what happens when you get old, you forget. And I was a little, but I can tell you the players. It was you and Kabir. It was Ryan and Sarah Longwell, Josh and Bethany Bidwell, Shelley and Bill Schrader, Deanna and Brett Favre, Doug and I. Those were the ones,
right? Where the Catlins were there when you were there?
Lindy? Yeah, Lindy, yes, and Aaron. Yep, they were there. And I reconnected with Lindy and Aaron while we were in Jacksonville. And I haven't seen them since Green Bay. So,
yeah. Wow. Okay, so let's get into you as the quarterback's wife.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
How was that? You know, I'm sure, you know, I look at the way it is right now, And so take, for instance, Patrick Mahomes' wife. Is that right? Mahomes, that's his name, right?
Yes.
I was, scrolling through and there was this reel and it was about his wife and the way that she was portrayed. It was saying that he is very private. He doesn't like to be in social media. She's doing this and she's doing that. And so they're just painting a picture of this woman. I don't know what's true and I don't know what's not. But I mean, I don't think we ever had that. We didn't have social media like it is right now. But you're talking about one of the most famous guys right now because of who he is in the league. And here's this woman. Like I said, I don't know her. But it's like I've been painted a picture of who she is, not knowing anything about her. And I don't know who the heck is talking. And so it's like she looks like they're creating her to be this snooty, I want the same attention. And I just think like, gosh, that's hard. And that sucks. And this whole like term, it's called, and I don't know if this is like a real official term when we were in the league, but it's WAGs, right? It's wives and girlfriends. So it's WAG. And
wives and girlfriends.
Yes. And so it's like a term. It's like a literal term. But the way that it's used in social media, it is portraying that the ideal way to be a WAG is to be a Britney, is to be a Taylor Swift, is to be like, you're supposed to have this like platform like your spouse. You're supposed to like have a fashion, like clothing line and different things. And I'm like, gosh, that's so not most of us. And so then take it again to this whole thing of like being quarterback's wife. Like if you can like give us like, just a glimpse of how it was for you in that space.
Well, first of all, Doug was never, he was always a backup quarterback for most of his career. So we were always in Brett Favre's shadow. We were always in someone's shadow. So I always tell people we had the best of all those worlds because we were in the NFL, but yet we were a backup quarterback and everybody loves the backup quarterback. And so we were always in the shadow, but we didn't have social media like that when we were in the NFL, which I'm so glad because I'm very shy. I'm not one to be in front of the camera. I would rather be in the background. And I don't like the attention either. If there's something going on, it's my husband always that's like in the media or he's fielding the questions and I can just kind of stand by him and let him talk. I think it's a very tough position. I think I read in your book also that there's so many expectations of, I think, every player and their wives and their families that are in this profession because it's hard. And what people don't realize that there's so many educated women that are married to these football players and coaches and that they do have lives. There's a lot of pressure like on these players. And now with social media, I think it's always lucky for me. The person that was my mentor through it all was Deanna Favre, and she is so humble and she's so graceful. She was from a small town just like myself. And her advice to me was never try to be someone that you're not. And when I started being the person that I was and not trying to be someone that I was not, it literally changed my whole attitude and the way I did everything in the NFL.
Wow. What great advice.
It was
Yeah. And I'm sure, gosh, she of anybody, to make sure that she was grounded with that mindset. Because just like, again, I can bring it up because he's playing right now, but Brett, oh my gosh, for sure. And so you know her in a way that, most didn't, just bringing her up. Like I looked at the NFL as kind of like high school, you get it. This is my, thing. And I don't know, because you already had kids, but I just remember like going in and you were asked to be part of the Packer Wives Association, to volunteer, to do all the things. And I was like, hey, I just got married. Like, I don't want to do that. Can you, can you just give me some time? And I felt really bad for that. But, Sherry Schuldis, who's head of that shoot, I remember her telling me like, hey, I respect you for that. So I didn't get involved, which kind of kept me like a little more distant from the ones that were there. But it was like, you see, it's like you're new, you want to meet people. Typically it's like this. And then you phase out of that because your focus is on your kids and your family. You can't do all the volunteering things. And there's that point, especially for her, because she's been there forever. It's like, yeah, she's totally not necessarily connected to the younger ones. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like, she's just moving on with her life. So yeah, just being connected with her. Like, how is she? Do you talk to her? Like, how was that? Like, and you talked about, like, as a backup quarterback, was that relieving for you guys? I mean, if you knew your role, like, how was that? Did you ever talk about the comparisons of, like, okay, she's Brett's wife, and like, how was that?
We never talked about that specifically. I feel like the thing that connected us right off the bat was that we were both from the South. She was from Mississippi and I was from Louisiana, was the very first thing. And the second thing is our love for God. I mean, our relationship, those two things connected us right off the bat. And then she went through her cancer, bout, and then just a lot of things that went on, just during that time but one of the things that we were able to go through that with them is to be through her journey when she went through that cancer. And it brought us together, and we just formed a connection, and it had nothing to do with being quarterbacks on the same team, but it was our being Southern girls and our love for God were the two things that brought us together.
Wow. That's awesome. And so it just shows the importance of making sure you have at least one person like that you're that close on a team.
Well, and I will tell you that the people that through all of our journey through the NFL, whether it was playing or coaching, the people that we have remained friends and remained in contact, and it might not be an everyday contact, but you can just pick up the phone or email them or text them, are the people that we had that relationship with that was based on our faith. So,
wow. So good. Okay. So let's talk about, like, you talked about moving so much. So one, I forgot. That's right. You were a nurse. And so now it's like, oh, okay. Yep. I totally remember that now. And just looking, like, how was it with all the moves and all the things? Like, how was that for you? How was it for the kids? What were your biggest struggles and then your biggest, like, strengths during those times?
Well, I have 3 boys, Drew, Josh, and Joel, and they're all adult children, and 2 are married, and we have 3 baby boys. But my kids growing up with their dad being in the NFL, we would always live, say, I'll use Green Bay. We would live in Green Bay from August till December. And then we would pull the kids out of school at Christmas break, and we moved back to Louisiana, and the kids would go to school from January till May back in Louisiana. And Drew, our oldest, he did that until he was in 6th grade. Is the first time that he went to school at the same school in August as he was done in May. So we moved a lot. And to this day, I tell everyone when I see boxes or a moving truck, I get PTSD every time I see that, because it is a lot and it's very stressful on anyone when you're moving. But we have done it our entire life, and we have moved from state to state. Kids would start new schools. They'd have to meet new friends. But I will tell you, when they got ready to go to college, it was such an easy transition for all 3 of my children, because they've literally been doing it their entire life.
Wow.
And myself, I grew up in Louisiana from the time I was born until I got married and I moved away with my husband. But for my kids, I call Louisiana home. I'm not sure where they call home because they've moved around so many times. 2 of them, I think, claim to be Southerners. And then my youngest child spent most of his time, we were in New Jersey. So I think he considers New Jersey home. So
that's crazy. Yeah. It's so funny. It's like when you think about that, and, I've got 8, and I look at the range of how they all look at life. And, how many times, Rashid has moved, and this little one who you would adore him. He's the cutest thing. Just life so different. And here, you know, like when we moved back to California, I'm like, yes, like no more snow. And that, you know, I'm like, oh my gosh, like really? I'm like, well, we can go to snow an hour away and then we can leave there. But it is something about their childhood that they're just connected to it. No matter how miserable it was with the snow,
Yeah.
it's just what they're with and they're okay with it. So I don't know. It's interesting because I don't know, you know, I'd love for them to stay in California, but who knows? Like I'm good here now. So,
Well, I would tell you, it was, again, for me being their mom, I mean, and, you know, dad's away a lot. And so, you know, I felt the responsibility of trying to keep things as normal as possible. And as far as the schoolwork, I would keep in touch with teachers from, you know, Louisiana schools, Wisconsin schools, just to make sure that they're doing the right thing. Do we need to do extra stuff? And then, but it worked out and our kids are resilient. And as long as they feel safe, you know, at home with their mom, their dad, and, you know, that was their normal and they never knew anything else. And so, but I think it was a good experience for them. You know, I think, like I said, their transition to college was very easy because it was just like another move for them.
yeah. We just moved our second one. So it was like 2 weeks ago. You know, here he's, you know, wanting to play, obviously, and with things happening the way that it did, my oldest two for sure. It was like life was on hold for them, right? When they wanted to get into sports, switching schools, all the things. So even though we weren't moving from state to state in regards to, you know, all those transitions of football, it was a lot of moving just because of what happened. We moved from our big house to 40 days. And I don't know how much you know or how much detail, how much detail, but when Kabir decided to follow this teaching, he wanted to bring us to Tennessee, which is where the headquarters were, wanted to pray the Jezebel spirit out of me, like just all this crazy stuff, you know, just going back to the law, going back to the Sabbath, polygamy, all those things. And so because he wanted to take us, we had to escape. So we're, you know, like up and leaving our home, you know, literally having the back of our van full of laundry baskets of clothes and taking them to a pastor's house in Stevens Point. So we were 40 days there. Then we were in a basement of a friend's house for, I think, 8 months. And then we finally moved to a new house. And so it's just been a whole lot of moving, but in Wisconsin. And so, yes, the resiliency that your kids have to go through, and, you know, thank God for God that, you know, no other way of getting through things like that. But, you know, his word says that he works all things out for the good of those who love him and who are called according to his purpose. And I just cling to that. And just like you, it's just like, I don't know. I look at the role, and just hearing you more, I look at the role of a mom and of a woman and how, you know, we can downplay it. And this is not to pump us up, but it's just like, you know, when we know our value, then we show up differently. Yeah. And we can not be deceived to think that our roles don't matter, because if we think that we don't matter, then we don't show up. We don't realize, like, oh my gosh, we are the prayer warriors for our family, or, you know, we're the solid ones that when all things are moving around, we're the ones that's why they call mom so much, because they know we're like, you know, we're the anchors. And this is not at all, you know, like the husband's role, the man's role was so big in so many different ways, but just to give understanding of like who we are, what we're meant for. That's, you know, obviously what I want to keep sharing. And so I love getting this perspective from you. I love hearing about these things, just knowing that your kids, because of how you handled yourself and how you guys, you know, did things, that, yeah, there are different adjustments that they made that could have been like stressful or harder than they were. But that's a lot. I didn't, you know, again, I'm just hearing things like, oh, like this is always so enlightening for me to hear someone else's like perspective on stuff.
Oh, I think women many, many times sell themselves short, because moms work really hard. And whether you're a stay-at-home mom or you work outside the home, you have a full-time job always. I have a thing that I still have somewhere that says because I have all boys, so it says from sun up to sundown, SON. And it's true. And even as adults, they still need their moms, and you still have that purpose. And I tell them all the time, I will never, I'm always available, and I will never stop, being there for you, because you just can't help it. You just got to give us a very special purpose. And I feel like he did that for dads and moms. There are things that I cannot do as the father, but then there's absolutely those things that a bear could not hold me back from being their mother. You've heard that, how mama bear gets, we get our claws out. And I was like, it is a true statement, because there's nothing that can stop when a mom's in control and that power, especially when it comes to her children. That's for sure. And now grandbabies for me too.
When did you see that?
I have 3 grandbaby boys now.
Oh, wow. Boy mom, boy grandma. Wow. That's
boy girl. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, how is Doug?
Doug is good. After he played for his 12 seasons in the NFL, he retired, and he always had done football, and we never really had talked about what he would do afterwards. And he had said he always wanted to be a coach. And so, being married for all those years, I honestly never heard him say that he wanted to be a coach. So I was like, oh, okay. And when you're in the NFL as a player, I can remember saying those words, oh, my husband will never be a coach. And now I tell people, never say never about anything. But he started out in high school coaching football for 4 years. And then again, I think I had told you earlier that Andy Reid was his quarterback coach in Green Bay. And then when Andy left to go be the head coach in Philadelphia, Doug followed him to Philadelphia. So when Doug retired from playing football, and then he got into high school coaching, Andy had always told him, hey, if you ever want to come coach for me, give me a call. And so what did Doug do? He and Andy had kept in touch through all that. And he said, hey, do you still have that spot available? So we followed Andy back to Philadelphia, and Doug was an assistant coach. And then he was there for 4 years with Andy. He followed Andy to Kansas City, and Doug was with Andy for 3 years as offensive coordinator in Kansas City. Wow. And then Doug got the head coaching job back in Philadelphia. And so we went from I know it's insane. So we went from Kansas City assistant coach. Philadelphia Eagles assistant coach, Kansas City offensive coordinator, back to Philadelphia as a head coach. And Doug was there for 5 seasons. And he was able to be a part of the Super Bowl team. He was the head coach. I know. God, so he was a Super Bowl winning coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. And unfortunately, after COVID and all that happened, he was let go from Philadelphia. He sat out a whole year, and that year it was a lot. He was fired on a Monday, and his brother was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer on a Friday. So that whole year that we were out of football, we spent it with his brother and treatment. Our first grandbaby was born. Our son got married. We had a lot happen in that season. And then from there, Doug went back. After that year, he was hired with Jacksonville Jaguars as their head coach. And when we set up this talk about doing the podcast, he was still the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, but he is no longer that coach anymore.
He's been a head coach. Okay, see, it goes to show how much I don't watch football until pretty much postseason.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh my God. No, you're the head coach's wife.
I will tell you, you were talking about the quarterback and the responsibilities. And I think you had even mentioned, what the similarities are in being quarterback and being a head coach's wife. And I would say that the similarities are both leadership. Quarterback, you're definitely the leader. Head coach, you're definitely the leader. They often get more praise, probably than they're warranted, but they also shoulder more blame than any of the other team. A part of the team, I sometimes feel, just because everyone knows what the quarterback does. They might not know what the O-line does, D-line does, or different positions. But even if you don't know football, I think hands down say that you know what the quarterback does. So I think both roles were leadership. Does anything prepare the wife for that? Not at all, because, you know, we're the ones that, you know, you hear the things, and I learned a long time ago not to read the media, social media, newspapers, or that stuff, because it's just, you know, it's very hurtful. And when that's your husband, father, grandfather, you know, you don't want to read things like that. And even though I'd say that, you know, bad news sells newspapers, you don't want to hear the stuff that they're saying about the people that you love. So I learned a long time ago to keep myself like away from that part of it.
Yeah. Wow. Did you feel a responsibility also to be a leader? Did you feel that you had to connect women, things like that?
I did, to a point that I didn't do it in Philadelphia, and actually started it in Jacksonville kind of by accident, because especially when your team is not doing well, you know, like everybody's always wondering, because they're talking about, oh, you know, this person might get fired, this person might get fired. And I just wanted some communication with the wives. So I started sending out every Monday just a text message. And when you're winning, those text messages are very easy, because you can do something like Happy Victory Monday. But when you're losing, you have to dig deep for that. And a ministry for me, especially these last 2 years, because on Monday, I would do my quiet time, and then I would think, Lord, what am I going to say today? You know, we've just lost our 5th straight game, and, you know, but it was like he always showed me something, some kind of nugget. And again, I didn't think it would matter to people, but when I got feedback that said, like, people who left to go on with another team or no longer with our team, or if we went to NFL league meetings, other head coaches' wives would hear about that, and they said, I really like what you do with the text message. And I was like, wow, I didn't know it made a difference. But like I said, even the small things, just to try to keep people connected. And then when Doug was head coach, we would have family dinner night every Tuesday night. So the coaches' wives who work longer hours than the players, because the players usually home by dinner, we would have every Tuesday night, the families would come up to the facility and have dinner with their dad. So that was kind of a fun thing. Try to create community, and for a chance to, you know, because a lot of times when the guys got home, their kiddos would be in bed, especially the ones that had young kids. So,
wow. Oh my gosh. Like, I'm at a loss for words. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And then to see how you look at it, you looked at it as like a ministry. That's huge. And so, you know, here we think it just puts things in perspective of how, like, God places us in different places to make impact, to affect people, to share God's love in totally different ways. Like, that's just so awesome to hear. It's like, wow, like we never got that. And not, you know, it's like, not that, like, I'm not saying it was a bad thing, but like, wow, you took the time to do this. Obviously it affected people, it impacted people. And then doing those family dinners, that's really cool. Like, I don't know. You said a lot of words. Like, I just love hearing these backstories that people don't get to hear.
In the big picture, the NFL is about winning and losing. I mean, that's the big picture. That's the money-making part of it. But in the big picture, it's about relationships. And whether you're at a place for 1 year or less than a year, or you're there for 15 or 20 years, I feel like it's the way you remember how you treated people, you know, and the seeds that you planted while you were there. And Tammy Reed was I said Deanna was kind of my mentor as a player's wife, and Tammy Reed was my mentor as a head coach's wife, because I think she has it perfectly down. I tell her all the time she needs to write a book, because she is the best at it. But her big thing is bloom where you're planted, and no matter how long you're there, you know, make the most of it. And that's what, you know, when we were there, you get involved in community service. You try to do things. We had 2 of our coaches' wives this past season who were both going through breast cancer. We were able to make meals to them and love on them. And nobody remembers, yes, we had a terrible season, but the people that were on the inside of that remembered, how we cared for each other and how we loved each other, and how we are very sad that it came to an end. But people don't, on the outside, they don't see what goes on the inside. And so I feel like we left those jobs better than when we got there. And in the big picture, that's what it's all about.
So good to hear. So good to hear that. So as you guys are transitioning, how is Doug now? Well, again, I didn't know all these things. Like, is he planning to coach? Well, one thing, like, I want to ask him that, but have you been nursing this whole time, or have you?
I have not. So when Doug was able to play in the NFL, I was able to be a full-time mom, which I would not trade for anything in the world. And with all the moves, it was virtually impossible for me to keep my job and then say, oh, hey, can you put this on pause? I need to go be a quarterback's wife for the next 5 or 6 months. So I was able to take a pause with my professional life and not work. When the kids got older, I went back to school. I felt like I should be doing something or whatever. And I took a couple classes to work on my master's. I didn't do that. I did a couple jobs in and out, but as far as working, I never really got back into working full time. I just was trying to do something to fill the void. And what I found was the void was I was with my kids and I was their full time everything. And then when they left, I felt like a part of me had left too. And that's what I was trying to fill that with. And I learned quickly that, I was trying to fill it with the wrong things. And so I was able to, like I said, getting back involved with community service and doing things that it was okay to do now because my kids were all grown and it was okay to get back into doing some things for myself.
Yeah. Well, see, and I hear that and I just think for us to give ourselves grace in that transition.
Yes.
Just feeling like we always have to do something. And so, for you to say, okay, like now, like for me, I couldn't do all the things that I'm doing. And man, take a day, they had 2 days ago was Martin Luther King Day. So when they're home, it changes everything. And that was my prayer. Like, God, like I want to keep things in order. Like, I don't ever want my kids to, and there's seasons, like I told them, like, hey guys, like heads up, I am traveling a lot these next 2 months, but I don't want that to be the case. I don't want that to be the norm. And so for me to be able to say, hey, this is just for this stint of time. Most of the time I'm here, there's this solid place of mom's here. She's here for us. And that's what I want it to be, is that my priorities at home. Thank God I have help, that, I can do other things. But, I just look at just even hearing you, it's like, gosh, I love how God prepares us ahead of time. And so he's prepared you as, as like the quarterback's wife, and then to the, the head coaching wife, and like how you use those roles and what you did and how you made impact. And so and then also, that year, like the one thing that I realized about God and that I feel like God gives us something. And so for example, like money, I think I was young in my faith. And I think I got a tax check, like $600 or something like that. And I was like, sweet, thinking that is extra money for me to use. But I think that same week, something happened where I needed that money. And so I'm just looking at what you're talking about, where you had said that season where, I don't know if you said that he got cut or like right during COVID, it's like God took you out of that space so that you can be there for his brother, so that you can have different times and different relationships, so that you can have your grandkids, so it's just interesting how God knows ahead of time what we need. We may not, but it's like, oh, okay, God, this is what you did, what you did, or this is how you're using this that I didn't understand before, and you're using it now. So I love hearing all this. Okay, so now back to Doug. Like, so he's done. How has that been? How has that been for you to be supportive of him as he's transitioning?
I mean, it's very difficult because, we went through this season when he retired as a player. And I think you can talk to every wife, girlfriend, anyone who has been in, has that connection with an NFL player. When football is no longer a part of their life, they have a lot to deal with that. And so with coaching, Doug's been doing this a long time. And you asked me, is he retired or is he done? I think I think there's still healing to be done, and you don't make decisions based on emotions. Only is taking some time off, just to kind of figure it out. Our home is in Jupiter, Florida. So this is where we have always called our forever home. This is where we will retire. And then we also have a farm in Arkansas, which is totally like two different places, but our boys love to hunt. They love the outdoors. They love to fish. And so we have the best of both worlds for them, because they can go hunt and fish and be boys, and then they can come to Florida and enjoy the beautiful, weather in South Florida. So I think time will tell if he will be done. I mean, it's been awesome, and he's a great coach, and we've literally experienced the highest of highs winning that Super Bowl. He won one as a player, and then he got to win one as a head coach.
Yeah. What year was that?
It was 2017 that he won it with the Eagles.
Wow.
We played the Patriots in Minneapolis. It was unbelievable. It was the greatest sports memory of my entire life.
Yes.
And Doug turned 50 that week. So it was just, like I said, and I think that's what sports does. You can be at the top of the mountain, and you can also be at the bottom, because he's at the highest of highs when we won that Super Bowl. And then the lowest of lows, or as a player, you get cut, or a coach, you get fired. And we've heard it has been said that a coach, you're either have been fired or you will be fired. Those are the two positions of being a coach. And in the NFL, coaching, or any coach, is based on your results. And when you're not winning, then you go a different direction. So that's kind of where we're at now. A lot of transition going on right now. But one thing that stayed steady through all of it, whether it's moving, changing teams, changing professions, getting married, having kids, has been our faith. And that's the thing that's been solid in all of this. And people, we had so many people reach out to us, and I said the same thing, and I meant it, that we're very disappointed, as we should be, but we have a strong foundation, and it won't be shaken. So,
wow, so good. Oh, well, please send in my best. I'll be praying for you guys. Sure, it's like a hard transition, and please let them know that all is well. Like God, I'm sure he's probably like shocked. But yeah, tell him all is well. And and so I don't know if you've probably seen pictures, but yeah, we have 7 boys, we have a girl.
I can't believe that. And in the book, you got married, and your husband had kids too, right?
Yeah, my husband has 7 of his own.
So 15 together.
Yes. And there's some stronger relationships than others, between him and his kids. The 2 oldest and the 2 youngest are more of the ones that he has connection with. So that means I have connection with, and all as well, the 2 youngest, when they come, they totally get along with our kids. And so, yeah, it's good. That's good. Remarriage is crazy hard. Super hard. we'll leave it at that. But, God is good, and there's always process. And, I just see, I've told him this, which I'm sure it's hard to hear, but, as hard as it was to go through all that I went through, there's parts of marriage that are harder in this sense, that, it was easier to pray for Kabir, to forgive him, to pray blessings over him, all the things that you're supposed to do, because it didn't have any emotion in it. It's like, okay, Lord, I'm obeying, I'm praying for him, praying for his wife, his kids, all those things, because I didn't have to deal with him. And so here I'm with my husband, and it's like, I forgive him, or I'm praying for him. But if I'm still mad, it's like, I have to, sleep next to him, or how is that your deal? So it's still young. This is a whole other topic, but when you hit the ground running with 15 and moved to California, and 2, he's doing great. He's starting his business and doing amazing, but that of course means that us having to reevaluate time together, all the things. So yeah, definitely not easy. And I think it's more of I put extra pressure on myself because of what I went through and because it was in the limelight. That, like, I'm talking about things I'd never really said to anybody before, at least on camera, is that I felt like all eyes were looking like, oh, okay, she's remarried. This is supposed to be now a perfect marriage. And it's like, wait, hold on. Whose marriage is perfect? Who doesn't have struggles at the beginning? And no one's really looking. But when you're in a situation where you've got 15 kids that are looking at you, and then on, aside from that, you have outside looking in going, and they're protective eyes. There's people who love me, who love the kids, and want to make sure all is well in that sense. But yeah, so there's definitely like a lot of pressure that I put on myself, and then going, I'm doing a podcast, I'm writing a book, I'm doing all these things. I better have it all together, which is not ever the case. I mean, we know it's just like you're in the same situation. Like, we're high profile. It doesn't mean that we have a perfect life, and that's okay. So
no, the people who portray being perfect and having no problems are usually the ones that are having problems and aren't perfect. And Doug and I just celebrated January 18th, our 33rd year of marriage. And I wish I could say it was rainbows and, I wish I could say it's been like that for 33 years, but it has not been. And you and I talked about in the Bible study when we were young about, being in a Bible study and being real, and marriage is hard. And whether you're on your first marriage, second marriage, you've brought a blended family together. Doug and I, we have had our own share of marital problems where we've gone to counseling. And there was a time where we were like, we could have given up very easily, but we made the choice to stay together. But through counseling and through God's hand on our marriage, I tell people all the time, that is the only reason that we are still married. And when you have a relationship, communication is the essence of a good relationship. And then having that common bond of, being believers. And you put those two things together, and then you have two imperfect people trying to figure it out. That's the key to a relationship. And so to walk around and act like you don't have problems, that is, that's not even real life. It's like going to church all dressed up with smiles on your face and having a broken heart. And your ministry, not only to people who, have been married and been divorced, but now remarried, a blended family. One of the couples that helped us the most when we were trying to work it out, one of my friends, and she had 3 kids and he had 3 kids, and they were remarried for their second marriage. And she said, if it was just the two of us, we'd have we'd be great. It'd be perfect. But then you're trying to blend these lives together, and that's where you get into your problems. And so when Doug and I were dealing with our thing and trying to pull this family back together, at least, it was our family with our kids. And it made us do a lot of thinking and a lot of processing on, okay, just opened our eyes, to things that maybe would, helped us like try a little bit harder, and then but trying meant both of us agreeing and having the same purpose and not just one-sided on that. So when people come to me and they say, I'm having problems, I'm going to counseling, my husband doesn't, I said, that's a red flag. If both of you aren't willing to admit that there's issues, then that's a red flag right off the bat.
Like, I am so happy that I did this. We're winding down. Such an amazing time. Like, this is probably the deepest conversation we've had, although we've had Bible study and different things like that. And I love that, I don't know, at least 15, probably more than that. Yeah, I think like 20 plus years since we've talked. So to hear how God has moved in your life, has given you all this godly wisdom, has taken care of your family, such an encouragement, yes, it's like such an inspiration that I know I can tell, like, this is not just for me, like the listeners having different perspective on things, seeing it in a whole different light. When I'm shocked when being in that world and I hear you, I'm like, oh my gosh, how crazy, or wow. Then I know the outside world, as well as the women, are going to say, okay, like, she understands what I'm going through, or, oh my gosh, if she could make it, I can. So such an encouragement to hear you. So as we close, what would you say, knowing what you're doing now, what would you tell someone who is in the thick of it? And I know it's very different, but what advice would you give them?
You mean like going through a difficult time or just
being a part of the NFL?
I would say that every person has their purpose, and I would say enjoy each season of your life, because you and I met, we were in our 20s and we were young moms, and and we were at the beginning of our career, and maybe you were at the beginning and we were kind of on the way out, but you go through different seasons. And I look at me now as a 55-year-old woman with 3 adult children. And then when I'm able to, talk to my coaches' wives who are in their 20s and they have young babies, or my daughter-in-laws who, I'm able to see it from a different set of eyes. And that comes from experience and my maturity and my Christian faith. And I would say, hang in there, stay in the Word, don't lose sight of God, because the verse that He will never leave you, He will never forsake you. I mean, people will let you down, but God will never let you down. And that would probably be my best part of advice for anyone.
So powerful. So good. So I am so glad you reached out. This makes me want to reach out to Shelly, because I did not know.
I'm telling you. And she has an awesome story too, Eileen. And it was all part of our group of our Bible study. And she was the one that told me about your book. She had read it. And I still talk to Shelly. She's one of the ones. And Jana Timmerman, did you know Jana and Adam? I think they had left before, but they were a part of one of the Bible studies that we had too. So, but no, Shelly would love that. And I could send you her contact too.
Jeannie, thank you so much for being a part of this show. Again, I know that you're going to be a huge encouragement for all listening ears, all people who are watching. Thank you. It's like, I feel like it just continues to get better, that when we are real, I know that it's a place of where the ones that are going through it, there's just a sense of relief, okay, someone understands me. And so thank you for being a part of that. Thank you for being real. Please get a hold of me if this has impacted you. hello@ladybellator.com. Get the book. I mean, you're hearing it from people that have read it and that have been impacted by it and who say it's an easy read. I love that part. So do this. Get a hold of it. Get a hold of me, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Do you feel like you're living on the sidelines of your own life, cheering others on while your dreams gather dust? If you're nodding along, you're not alone. I'm Eileen Noyes, and I've been there too. As a former NFL wife, I felt like I was in the shadows as someone else pursued their dreams. But here's the truth. God didn't create you to be a spectator in your own story. That's why I wrote Sideline No More. This book is your playbook for reclaiming your purpose and living the life God intended for you. Whether you're an athlete's wife or simply feel stuck on the bench, it's time to get in the game. Sideline No More will help you discover your unique talents and passions, overcome the fear holding you back, and build a life of purpose and fulfillment. Don't let another day pass feeling unfulfilled. Get your copy of Sideline No More today at ladybellator.com/books. That's LADYBELLATOR.com/books. It's time to step off the sidelines and into your God-given purpose. Your adventure awaits. Until next time, love well, celebrate your strength, and discover the new things you are capable of. You are a light in the lives of those around you, and no night is too dark for you to find your way.